I want to get to imperialist wars and irrationality, and also important point to point out: the age of conflict is the most complex and therefore the most interesting phase of these 7 stages. So, stage 4 is a period of imperialist wars and irrationality supported for reasons that are usually different for the different social classes. For the masses of people who don't have any vested interest in the existing institution, engaging in imperialist wars is a job. Like this is my only way to move up the ladder because participating in the society doesn't do it anymore. So unable to get ahead by other means, they seek to get ahead by political action and above all, taking wealth from their political neighbors. At the same time, they turn to irrationality to compensate for the growing insecurity of life, for the chronic economic depression, for growing bitterness and dangers of class struggles, and for growing social disruption and insecurity from the imperialist wars. Now, here's where let's start hitting some nerves. This is generally a period of gambling, use of narcotics or intoxicants, obsessions with sex, frequently as perversion, increasing crime, growing numbers of neurotics and psychotics, and a growing obsession with death in the hereafter. Did I just describe the current situation?
Fair enough. Yes.
Did I just freaking describe the current situation? And he hadn't. Oh, the example was later. I was reading through this yesterday to get ready for the call. I remember when we get to Western civilization, when he talks about the first age of conflict back in, we're talking like 1270 AD, that one of the examples of growing irrationality were the flagellants. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes. These wandering penitents
that would whip themselves.
Yes.
In order to get right with God or whatever. This is a perfect example of moving toward irrationality, becoming obsessed with death and the hereafter. I made fun of the rapturists. I will continue to make fun of the rapturists because the rapture is essentially an idea that it's irrational and it's an obsession with death and the hereafter, which is to say, I do not need to participate in society because I have this magic switch that happened in my mind that's going to save me and remove me from it. From the consequences of it. And I mean, how did he put it? It's help from the growing disruption and insecurity from imperialist wars. Yeah, the insecurity of society, they're dealing with it. These rapturists are dealing with it by just saying, well, some magic thing's going to happen that's going to take me out of it and save me from all of it. So the vested now that's the masses. The vested interests encourage the growth of imperialist wars and irrationality because both serve to divert the discontent of the masses away from the vested interests. Accordingly, some of defenders of vested interests divert a certain part of their surplus to create instruments of class oppression, instruments of imperialist wars, and instruments of irrationality. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
In the current state of affairs right now, can you think of an instrument of class oppression, an instrument of imperialist war, or an instrument of irrationality?
ADL, U.S. military, the media.
The media. Yeah, I was going to say the media, yes.
So, and I think the ADL is going to be a perfect example of what I'm about to say here. Once these instruments are created and begin to become institutions of class oppression, institutions of imperialist wars, and institutions of irrationality, the chances of an instrument or an institution of expansion being reformed back into an instrument of expansion become almost nil. This is an important, highly important point that I try to emphasize to people who are black-pilled. Who are these people running around going, Western civilization or America is showing the exact same signs when Rome was about to fall. It's all about to collapse. I don't think we're here yet. I do not think we're here yet. And let's take the ADL for example.
Okay.
I believe the ADL is a perfect example of an instrument of class oppression. Right? It's a way to divide classes. The ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center have been getting their fingers into training law enforcement. And they're training law enforcement with words and definitions that they made up for those words that are, repeating myself, they're made up. So, for example, I mean, this is going to go on YouTube. I want to be careful about, flagging the algorithm, but domestic, supremacists, right? A certain color of supremacist, a certain flavor of domestic something or other.
Mm-hmm.
The ADL is creating the definitions and training law enforcement to act based on the definitions that they've created. And what's important here is that, I mean, first of all, whether those definitions are good or bad is secondary to the fact that there's an instrument, there's an organization other than the government creating those definitions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? This is putting the power into the ADL. This is putting legislative power into the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I would say if we get to a point where that's fully institutionalized, where law enforcement, for example, doesn't go to the government for their definitions of anything at all. It doesn't go to the government for the training at all. It doesn't go to the population that is supposed to serve at all and say, how do we serve this population? It goes to the ADL for its definitions and its orders. At that point, we've entered the phase that Quigley's talking about here. And chances of reform are almost nil. I do not think we're there yet.